They handed me the kind of table you give to folks you hope won't stay long. A wobbling disc by the kitchen door at a place called the Cypress and Crown in Charleston. And that was perfect, because I wasn't there to be seen, I was there to see. Hoodie, beat-up boots, old cap pulled low. The whole room looked past me like I was a smudge on the mirror, and I let them, because sometimes you learn more when people think you don't matter. The steak I ordered came out on a slab that could anchor a boat, the lobster tail shining like a trophy. And just as I lifted my fork, a napkin slid under my plate, quiet as a secret. 12 rushed words in blue ink punched straight through my calm. They call you the N-word, in the back. They messed with your food. Ask for the kitchen tapes. The chandelier kept glittering. The laughter kept humming, but the temperature inside me flipped. Skin hot, head cold. And every mile I'd walked from the boy I was to the man I became stood up in me at once. I didn't look at the server, Tiana, not even a glance. I just folded that napkin, tucked it into my hoodie, like evidence, set the fork down, and breathed through the kind of anger you don't let make your hands move. You know what I mean? I grew up where the mill whistle told you what time it was, and the price of being seen was higher than the pay on Friday. Learned to tie a tie in a gas station mirror-pitched men in shiny suits while praying they didn't notice my borrowed jacket, or the way my stomach sounded like a bad speaker. So when a room decides you don't belong, that's not new to me. It just wakes up an old dog that knows tricks. I texted Eli on a clean phone, the one I keep for nights like this, told him to pull 90 days of cloud backups for every camera in that building, and to cross-check disciplinary files, silent protocol. Then I stood, and here came Greg, the manager, with that corporate smile you could use as a coaster. "Problem with your meal, buddy," he said, and I said, "Office quiet, not unkind, just finished." He tried the discount line. "The guest satisfaction is our guiding star line," and I cut him off with a palm in the air, like, "Save it, man." His office had a fake ficus, a big desk and a chair that made you feel small on purpose. "Show me the kitchen feed," I said. He blinked, sweated from places I didn't know could sweat, then clicked around and, boom, a clean jump in the timeline, 2 minutes gone like a magic trick no one clapped for. "Old hardware loops," he said, and I nodded like I believed him, because I didn't need the lie to hold. I already had the truth in my pocket. I texted Eli again. Local recorder tampered, locked down the back office router and the manager's machine. Then I told Greg to hand over his keys and go home. He asked who I thought I was, and I told him in the kind of sentence a fake ficus could understand. Yeah, that happened. The twist, since every story needs one, is simple. I own the bricks, the sign, the payroll, the insurance rider that paid for the cameras they thought were their shield. And I had been hearing whispers for weeks about slurs in the kitchen, card. First rules for certain guests, plates that left the pass with spite on them, so I didn't send a consultant. I flew in quiet and took a bad table to see what I'd built without meaning to. Back at the hotel, Eli came up on an encrypted call and didn't waste syllables. "They were lazy," he said. "Deleted local, forgot cloud retention in the policy you signed last spring." We opened the file, high-def time-stamped, the kind of video that erases doubt and breaks your heart. The chef leaned over that monster steak and did what the napkin warned. Someone laughed, someone said, "Teach folks where they belong," and the room inside me went to ice. We scrubbed backward. A burger kicked across the floor and rescued plates nuked and salted because an older couple complained accents mocked when backs were turned. None of it new in the history of ugly, all of it documented like a confession reel. I forwarded the lot to Rosa, my lawyer notes attached, full complaints, hold public until I speak. I didn't sleep. At 7 I called operations at 8, the landlord, which is still me, at 9 the city, And at 10, the door at Cypress and Crown read, "Private Event," while the dining room filled with black shirts and polished shoes, and the kind of quiet you can taste. Tiana came in bracing for a goodbye, stood in front of me, with the steady eyes of someone who has worked through pain before, and asked, "Am I fired?" I said. "You're the only person I know for sure isn't thanked her for the note," and she said she did what anybody would have done. And I had to swallow before I said, "I wish that were true." Greg was suspended, escorted out the chef with the TV judge swagger, followed investigators from the Civil Rights Unit, walked the kitchen with clipboards and chain of custody bags. No flashing lights, just questions with teeth, and I stood on the front steps in a suit I didn't feel like I deserved that day, and told the truth into microphones that don't forgive stutters. "We're closed," I said, not to hide, to clean to the studs, and I named Tiana in full daylight, because hiding the person who saved you is another kind of lie. She stood there in a simple dress we bought on the way because I wanted the city to see a person, not a uniform, and she didn't wave, didn't smile. Big just stood up straight like a signal on a foggy coast. Then we did something a PR deck can't salvage if you fake it. We rebuilt. Tiana took a job that didn't exist at breakfast and was real by lunch. Director of Culture and Community. A seat at the table authority to set the reporting lines so no complaint could get buried under a stack of menus to roll out training that doesn't talk like a keynote and doesn't care if you're bored to run weekly town halls in a circle of chairs where no one can hide behind a podium. She told her story without pointing at people like targets. A dishwasher spoke with a voice that shook, a server cried. Because she realized the joke from last winter wasn't funny, one cook walked out, another came back Monday, and asked if he could try again, and she said, "Let's talk." We took down oil portraits of men who did harm, and sent them to a museum with labels that tell the truth, opened the kitchen up bright, so the line looks like a stage without curtains, and brought in Portia from Memphis to run the food like a choir. No screaming, just sharp snaps and looks that can tune a sauce from fine to right. We promoted Luis, a busser, who knows the room by feel, and he blushes when someone calls him manager, which is exactly the kind of heart you want in charge. Opening night wasn't champagne and ribbon. It was neighbors in jeans, a quiet line by the door, plates that taste like the Low Country, without the price tag that could make a car payment, collards from 10 miles away, cornbread that eats like a love letter from a church picnic. An older couple who'd left hungry years ago for reasons that had nothing to do with portion size stopped by the pass and told Tiana they believed her more than me, and I nodded because that's fair. Then she walked them through the kitchen like a museum, introduced Portia and Luis and the teenager on fries, whose hands only shake away from the fryer, and they left with a to-go box and a reservation for next month. For a second, I felt like the kid in the borrowed suit again, the one who shipped an app from a bedroom and watched a stranger pay for it, the world bending one receipt at a time. And because nothing ends clean, the chef we fired went on a podcast and called me a performative billionaire, said the tapes were edited. A setup said guests are too sensitive now. His lawyer wrote words like defamation and selective disclosure. A columnist said, shuttering hurts workers more than bosses, and maybe I should have handled it quietly. And people on both sides told me I either didn't go far enough or went too far. That's America's cocktail, right justice with a twist of whatabout. So here's where we land. I could have burned the place and salted the earth, and maybe some days that feels righteous. But I chose daylight and drywall dust, chose to put my name on an apology, and my money where my mouth is, chose to put the person who handed me the truth at the center of the room, so she can tell me when I start lying to myself, again chose rebuild over vanish. Was it enough or was it theater? Should I have closed it forever to make a point? Or does change on the inside count more than a headline? If that napkin slid under your plate, what would you do? And if you were? Tiana, would you risk a paycheck for a stranger in a hoodie? Or go home, clock out, try to sleep? If this hit something in you, made you mad, made you nod, made you roll your eyes, say why. Drop a comment and tell me what justice looks like here, where I was right, where I was wrong, what you've seen and stayed quiet about, or spoke up about, and paid the price. Do we cancel a place that harms or rebuild it in public and hold it to the light? I'm not asking for easy takes. I'm asking for your story. Because sometimes the thing that changes everything isn't a press conference or a lawsuit. It's a cheap napkin, a pen that barely writes, and the courage to slide the truth across a table. You know what I mean.